Welcome back. All right, so panic index. We haven't done a panic index in a while, so right here, don't panic. But I'm wearing my Cthulhu hat for people who might be upset and think just burn it all. So you've got the utmost happiness up here, the Homer Simpson being happy right here. You've got the kids. The kids, Bart and Lisa, are the panic here. Creed Bratton from The Office is mildly concerned, not panicked, and this is the thoughtful kind of face for maybe panic, maybe not. And down here's the telephone. The telephone is to represent, well, hey, this is what telephones looked like 40 years ago. And it's from the 80s stickers that I got that I turned into magnets. I can't use that for an 80s game because people are like, why is there a phone? So the phone is there to represent the draft lottery and a team getting a phone call with, hey, you won the draft lottery, or hey, you didn't because you didn't win it because you're San Jose, you're not allowed. So with the understanding that it's top to bottom, right? Happiest. And the phone doesn't mean you're unhappy. It just means you've accepted that it just hasn't happened. We'll see if any teams qualify for panic in my eyes. Because I don't go through this beforehand. I just put the board together, make sure I got all 32 logos, and off we go. We'll start with Minnesota. It feels like Minnesota belongs here. They're 3 points back of a playoff spot. But are they capable of catching Vegas? Is Vegas going to turn it around in time to hold on to that playoff spot? I'm not sure that we have enough information right now, but being 3 points out of the playoffs, at least they're in the conversation. They're the top team below the playoff line, which is, as I've mentioned before, maybe the most frustrating place to be as a sports fan. When your team is the last one that misses the playoffs. So it's possible Minnesota's that team. It might be St. Louis. Could be Calgary if they rally, but Minnesota wants to get above the playoff line. Nashville. Oh, things are good in Nashville right now, aren't they? 15-game point streak. Things couldn't be better. Other than, if they won a Stanley Cup this year. And with the way Nashville's playing, I've said it before, I'll say it again here, I think they're going to be really tough out in the playoffs. I think especially in the first round, they could be an absolute nightmare. I could see them putting up a big result in game one of a series, maybe losing game two, but then you go back home, you've got home ice advantage all of a sudden. So for Nashville, I think they're going to be a nightmare. Florida, things are pretty good in Florida, aren't they? One of the favorites to win the Stanley Cup this year, went to the Stanley Cup final last year. I still think they end up finishing first in the division. Boston's ahead of them. They do have games in hand on Boston. So we'll see how things go with Florida. But yeah, Florida right now, I don't see any reason not to have Florida at the top of the board. I could try to argue them not at the top, but I don't think I can. San Jose's right next to the phone. As I said, they're going to get a phone call telling them, it's nice, we're glad you're here again, but you still didn't win the lottery. Which I think most of us, just general lay people, understand that we don't win lotteries in general, and so we have some sympathy/empathy for these teams going through this. And so we'll see whether or not San Jose actually does win the draft lottery this year. Looks like Celebrini's going to be quite the player, so we'll see. Anaheim, pretty much in the same spot as the San Jose Sharks. Why, yes, I did pick all of the logos to start with as being ones that have animal logos, including the Ducks, which is part of the reason why I use this logo, and also I like that logo better. But Anaheim's been in this position for a while. Two California teams hoping they win the draft lottery. Both of these teams have started stockpiling prospects and draft picks, and I don't expect that to change over the summer. Buffalo, Buffalo's a tough one. I'm going to put them here, the concern part. So they lose last night in Vancouver, and obviously for Buffalo to make the playoffs, they have to win a bunch of games. They have to get on quite the streak here. And then they have to get some help from teams above them. The odds are against them. The thing with Buffalo is this. So they're kind of in the same position I mentioned with Minnesota. They look good to finish out the season, right? Right now they look all right, right? They're getting the goaltending. Their defenses look really good. Adding Bowen Byram was stroke of genius. Middlestad's been really good for Colorado. It's a trade that benefited both teams. It's rare, but it does happen. And so I think Buffalo, yeah, they're in good shape for next season, but that concern is still there. I can't put them in panicked because they're playing too well to be in panic, but I can't put them in that thoughtful maybe position either because, yeah, they're not likely to make the playoffs. Washington, right here. Washington's right there because they're right near the playoff line. They weren't expected to be. I think the Washington Capitals have done a good job of taking what is a lineup that on paper doesn't look fantastic and making it a team that's right near that playoff line and may end up making it. They absolutely could make the playoffs. It will be fascinating to see what they would do in the first round of a playoff. And it's much the same, too, that if they win one of the first 2 games and they get home ice advantage, because games 3, 4, and 6 are at home, right? So all you have to do is win 1 on the road and then hold serve at home, and you win in 6. But Washington's going to be an interesting one to watch and see if they're able to take the game they're playing now and play that in the playoffs. Shot suppression, kind of boring at times, but, they control the game. If they can control the game in the playoffs, look out. Pittsburgh. Does Pittsburgh qualify for panic? It feels like they do. And here's why. So already we're hearing, okay, so they want to keep Crosby the rest of his career. And I have no doubt Crosby will finish his career as a Penguin. I don't think he'd look right in any other jersey. I'd be very surprised if that changed. But what do you do in the offseason? This is going to be a team that's missed the playoffs 2 years in a row. It's quite clear that they have no appetite for a full rebuild at this time. Do they do a retool? They don't have a lot in terms of top-end prospects that are coming up. And then they traded Nylander to Columbus, and he's been fantastic in Columbus. So, yeah, for Pittsburgh, things have not necessarily gone their way this season. And so I do think there's definitely some panic, because how do you fix this? This is an older team, and it's a team that has been resisting the rebuild over the last 12 months. I think bringing in Karlsson raises more questions than it answers. And, yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to be panicked if you're a Penguins fan right now. Vancouver, not at the top. First time I can think of where they haven't been at the top in a while. Their play recently has been good, not great. Last night against Buffalo, for instance, they had some trouble closing that out. I understand the game being more important to Buffalo than Vancouver. I do wonder with Vancouver if having that big cushion atop the division might take some of the... it doesn't take the motivation away, but it means you're a little less motivated than the team you're playing against. That might be part of what we've seen with Vancouver. For instance, Colorado last week comes in with the big comeback victory. Well, Colorado's in a battle for first place in their division. They really, really needed that. Vancouver, not so much. They don't really have to worry about first place at this point. They might be better off if they had a team to really be concerned with catching them. If Vegas was better, if Edmonton had been better right out of the gate. So, yeah, Vancouver, and that ends the animal-related logos in the National Hockey League. There's a bunch. All right, so vehicles get into this now. I decided to go with vehicles. Winnipeg. I'm going to put Winnipeg right up here. Look, they beat the Rangers last night, and they look good doing so. Definitely Rick Bowness has them playing a style of hockey that is good, conducive to maybe a long playoff run. I think the Jets at this point are being underrated by some. Because I've seen, like, there were the power rankings last week, not this week, but last week, where the Jets were in 8th, and I saw, oh, you got them way too high, and somebody responds right away with, oh, yeah, he's always got the Jets too high on he always kisses up to the Jets. And I went and looked at the record, and I was like, no, if anything, Jets fans get mad at me that they're too low. But, again, I understand that some fans just look at the Jets and go, they're never going to make it. They're never going to break through. Maybe this is the year. Detroit. I do think with Detroit, I'm going to put them here. I'm tempted to put them next to Panic. I am tempted because they have their struggles. This team should not be going through the kinds of losing streaks that they still are. And so they're in a playoff spot right now. They did rally against Columbus. My issue with that game last night was they didn't start on time against Columbus, a team well out of the playoff picture. So I have some concern with Detroit myself. So I would have figured most Detroit fans do. I don't read it as panic necessarily. If they miss the playoffs, that could change. So I reserve the right to do one more panic index before the season's done. The Rangers have got to be at the top. Even with that loss last night, they're 16-4-1 in their last 21 games. Rangers are playing well. It's just a matter of what's going to happen in the playoffs. I don't see any reason not to have the Rangers at the top of the board. As we get into the text magnets or text logos, I should say, that I've turned into magnets, logos with text on them, which includes the Islanders. The Islanders right now have to be in this area right here. They go on a winning streak. Things look great. Everything's adding up. And then they go on a losing streak right after that. Very, very streaky, not unlike Detroit. I think under Patrick Waugh, they've had a nice bump, but at some point that coach's bump usually ends, and I think that's part of what we're seeing with the New York Islanders. You can see some frustration with Patrick Waugh. He doesn't do the poker face as well as some other coaches, which is good. I think the emotion is good. I think the honesty is good. And for the Islanders, it may very well end up that they don't make the playoffs, but with Patrick Waugh behind the bench, maybe some changes in the offseason and the right tweaks, they could be right back in the mix next season. But they definitely right now look like they're fading. That game against Carolina last night, the Canes just controlled that. Toronto's tough to really read the emotions around. I'm going to put them here. I don't think now. Okay, fine. All right. I'll put them here and I'll say why. Toronto's play recently has been quite good. Their record's been good as well. But we know in the first round they're going to play against Boston or Florida. Probably Boston. I think Florida still wins the division. We know they struggle against Boston in the regular season. I think it gets overblown a little bit. They haven't played Boston in a while in the playoffs. We don't know for sure. And I know people say, oh, no, we know for sure. We don't, though. All the years I've watched hockey, there are definitely times where a team will slay the dragon. Vancouver and Chicago, ever since that Slay the Dragon, it just feels like that's become a thing now where, oh, they finally slayed the dragon. Oh, can we stop with the dragon talk? Anyway, but Toronto may very well do that themselves this year against Boston. But are they a cup contender? That's where the question comes in. And then if they fall in the first or second round this year, what do you do in the offseason becomes the question, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and hedge and just have Toronto on the not necessarily happy, not necessarily unhappy, because looking towards the playoffs, there's a lot of concern, right? Arizona's waiting for that phone call. They're also waiting for the auction call, right? So we're going to see that in June. We're going to have a better idea of what's going to happen with this team going forward when the auction process is completed in June. For all that's holy, I certainly hope it stops being a topic of conversation this summer, because I may have to start covering baseball a little bit. Just for a little bit. I don't know. I don't know how much more of the Arizona uncertainty this guy can handle. It's been years where I've been doing videos. I almost feel like I don't have to make new videos. I could just repost old ones and just have little annotations in the corner about this was in 2021. This is what's changed. Not a lot. But anyways, I hope the Arizona question gets cleared up soon. St. Louis. St. Louis is tough. It does feel like they belong in the concern category. So last night they lose against Colorado. Not unlike everybody else lately. Colorado's just been capable of beating teams. But for St. Louis, they're unlikely to make the playoffs. There's still that possibility, yes. But what is St. Louis going forward? What do you change in St. Louis? And I mean, is it going to mean a change at the top? Does the GM get changed? Who stays, who goes this summer? So I'm going to have them on the concerned side of things rather than the happiest or right on the line where I've got the Minnesota Wild. The LA Kings have played well recently. I think there's every reason to think the Kings can hold that third spot. But we'll see, right? The Kings have been very hot and cold this year. And the one concern I have with the Kings is they don't play that well at home. The upside is if they're third in the division, they don't have to worry about home games for the first two. If they win the first two on the road, then all they have to do is get a split at home, and you're up 3-1. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But at any rate, yeah, I don't think there's any reason to have the Kings in the concerned area right now. But we'll see if that changes over the next couple of weeks. The Oilers, you know what? The Oilers are playing really well. They won the game last night against Montreal. They had to claw that one out because Montreal played, honestly, a really good game overall, I thought. But the Oilers, yeah, things are going really, really well. They're rolling. It looks like they're easily going to finish second. They may threaten the Canucks for first place, which, as I said, with Vancouver, that may end up being the best thing that could happen for the Canucks, is having somebody chasing them down. And maybe that'll light a fire under them a little bit. But at any rate, the Oilers are playing quite well. Seattle. So they're not in the playoff picture. They're sitting, 11 points out currently? It's hard not to put them next to the phone waiting for the draft lottery call, Because I don't think there's any concern in Seattle. Like, it's only year 3. They made the playoffs in year 2. And there's enough good things with Seattle where a lot of announcers seem to want Seattle to make the playoffs. About a month ago, I was hearing a lot of, oh, they're going to make it. They're going to make it. And then they just haven't played all that well since. I never was on that bandwagon of Seattle's going to, run their way to a playoff spot. It's hard to do that. Once you're behind early in the season, it's really hard to make up that space. But they're getting to overtime a lot. I do think Seattle, with the right changes this summer, right back in the playoff hunt next year. Montreal, right next to the phone as well. Montreal's been very clear about their intentions, about the process of going through a rebuild, and Kent Hughes is not looking to speed that up. He's not looking to cheat. He's looking to just keep going on that same path. So we'll see what happens with the Montreal Canadiens going forward, but they're still in the rebuild, and I think they've done quite well. They've done quite well for themselves. They've got a lot of draft capital. They've got a lot of good prospects coming up. The future's bright. Boston. I'm going to put Boston here. They're on a winning streak right now. I'm not going to put them in the top row. I do think that Boston ends up, again, I mentioned probably finishing second behind Florida, only because I think Florida's just been ridiculous. And I think there's no reason to think that's going to necessarily slow down. The Boston Bruins, I will be very curious to see how, in a postseason setup, so in a series, how their center position shakes down. They don't have Bergeron, they don't have Krejci, and very often teams with really strong 1-4 center depth are the ones that are left standing in the Stanley Cup final to play off for the Stanley Cup. It is rare that a team that doesn't have that top-end talent from 1-4 down the middle goes all that far. And while I like what Boston's been able to do this year without Bergeron and Krejci, I don't know if they can get through 4 rounds of a playoffs. I will be very happy if they do. I just don't know that they do. New Jersey. Well, I'm going to put them here. I'm going to put New Jersey here because even though they get the win last night against Pittsburgh, they keep their faint playoff hopes alive. It does feel like things in New Jersey have been not tire fire level, but getting close to, within the vicinity of, maybe downwind of said tire fire. Maybe you can smell it in the air, but it's not necessarily your tire fire yet. But for New Jersey, again, they pick up Jake Allen at the deadline. Allen's been excellent for them in his appearances with the New Jersey Devils. And for me, and I know that may not be the case for others, it underlines the fact that, or at least in my opinion, that if Fitzgerald had been able to fix the goaltending issue earlier in the season, we'd likely be looking at a Devils team above the playoff line. And then the question becomes, who gets the blame for that then? Where does that go? And what does the team look like next year? So, yeah, I'm going to have them next to Panic. You guys can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding that, but that's where I think the Devils are right now. Dallas, it's been an up and down few weeks for Dallas. So all 3 of the teams that I root for, Vancouver, Boston, Dallas, I have in that same region of things are going well. They're all first place in their divisions, but all of them have shown signs that they're not invincible. They're not playing fantastic hockey every night. Dallas is capable of it. Dallas, remember, before the season started, I took New Jersey over Dallas in the Stanley Cup final. So I believed in Dallas to start the season. I don't see them beating Colorado in a 7-game series. I don't know how they do against Winnipeg. I'd be very curious to see how they do against the Winnipeg Jets in a 7-game series. And obviously that'd be a series my wife and I would really much enjoy because she's a big Jets fan. Flyers. Oh, you can't. With the Couturier thing and everything that's going on around the Flyers, you can't have them higher than, I think, the Creed face at this point. The concern. They win last night with the benching of Couturier, which kind of lends some credence to what was done there, but are you going to be happy about it as a Flyers fan that the new captain of the team has been kind of thrown under the bus and that the message he got was, I want more. And there's been no specifics of what more means. I can't imagine being at a job and somebody going, yeah, we'd like more. More what? Just more. Okay. It's like the 37 pieces of flair in Office Space, but at least there, she knew what they were talking about with more. There was more. Maybe Couturier needs to wear pieces of flair. Maybe that's all it is. And if you don't get the reference, go watch Office Space. It's a great movie. And unless you're offended by swearing, in which case it's not a great movie for you, but yeah, I love the movie. Calgary. Oh, Calgary. Ugh. This one's tough. I'm going to put them next to concerned. I don't want to put them next to panic, but I can't really put them any higher. So we've gone through the process of them selling off all their unrestricted free agents. But they're not in a region where I'm going to put them next to the phone either because, yeah, they're outside of the playoff picture, kind of, sort of. But what's the picture look like going forward? What's this team going to do? There are other question marks with this roster. The Markstrom thing is still out there. Does Markstrom move on at the end of this season? Probably. What does that look like? What does the team do? What do they get back for Markstrom? I think there's a lot of question marks still with Calgary. And so I'm going to put them next to the concern, not here or higher, but yeah, I'm going to put them next to the concern. Again, you guys can let me know your thoughts. There's no scientific method for this. It's just fun. I swear it's just fun. Speaking of which, Colorado's having fun, aren't they? Avs fans having a lot of fun. They no matter what the score is in a game, don't turn it off if it's an Avs game, because if they're losing, they're probably going to win. If they're winning, they're probably going to win. If it's tied, they're probably going to win. And Colorado is getting into it at the right time. With the return of Nichushkin, with them being relatively healthy, and with the fact that they turned Johansson into Mittelstadt, that was a pretty smart move. And I love picking up Sean Walker. I will defend Sean Walker as being a very good defenseman in the NHL the rest of my days. I think Walker's a good defenseman, and he was a good pickup. Losing Byram kind of hurts, but if the rumors are true that Byram just didn't want to play second fiddle behind Makar, he felt like he could be the guy, then trading him to Buffalo seemed to work for Buffalo. It worked for Byram, and Mittelstadt they got back. It's worked pretty well for Colorado so far. Vegas. Oh, is the line the right spot for Vegas? So Vegas is still above the playoff line, or is concern the right place to put them? You know what? I think concern's the right place. I don't think panic's the right place for them because they are above the playoff line, and they don't have to worry about teams behind them having a ton of games in hand or anything like that. But you have to be at least concerned right now. Like last night against Tampa, that's normally a game where you'd see some sort of a comeback, and we didn't. We didn't see that comeback. It was close. They were a post away from getting a goal from Hanifin, but in the end, they lose that one 5-3. And so there has to be at least some concern around Vegas right now and whether or not they're going to be able to stay above that playoff line. Ottawa. I'm going to put them next to the phone, but honestly, I kind of feel like panic might be the right place for Ottawa because it's been so long since they made the playoffs now. This is where we were told, like years back, we were told this is right around where they'd be having, unbridled success. Success at a rate the Sens never did. And when Eugene Melnyk and Pierre Dorian were saying these things, I remember thinking and saying in videos, it's hard to predict that. It's fine. You can go out, you can add prospects, you can talk about how great things are going to be 3-4 years down the road, but you don't know. And they seem to be talking with a lot of certainty about here's what we're going to do, and we're going to go to the salary cap, and then everything's going to be great. And I thought, but you don't know. And what we're seeing with Ottawa right now is a lot of don't know. And so what Steve Stais does this summer, it's going to be very interesting to see. I'm half tempted to just move him up here, but I'm not going to. I don't think there's necessarily panic right now around the Ottawa Senators. Chicago's here. I can't make an argument for Chicago anywhere but there, can I? Bedard's looked really good lately. When he's healthy, he's been quite good at the NHL level. He's around a point per game. And now it's about adding guys to this roster. It will be interesting to see, though, because Kyle Davidson really is building this team from virtually nothing. This team's been stripped right down to the roots, right down to it's gone. If it's a car you left outside, you come out, you find a frame. So, and that frame is Bedard. And so we'll see how Chicago builds it up. Because again, the tearing down part, relatively easy. It's the building back up that's not. Columbus, right next to the phone as well. Yeah, the Blue Jackets. Obviously, the Blue Jackets have a relatively good team. I think their team is better than what their record is. But the record has them next to that phone waiting for the draft lottery. So it's 4, 5, 6, 8 teams waiting for the draft lottery. Carolina. Things are good in Carolina. Just ignore my UFA, RFA video from earlier today. Things are just perfectly fine. Carolina's got nothing to worry about. Now, if you're thinking about next year, then maybe. But for right now, you don't. They're playing really well. Gensel's looked like he's been quite good. Kuznetsov looks better right now in Carolina than he has for the last couple of seasons in Washington. And yeah, they made some good moves at the deadline. They look pretty smart right now. Once we get to the playoffs, we'll see. whether or not Freddie Anderson can stay healthy for a long period of time and maybe help them get through and win in the playoffs. But yeah, Carolina's at the top. Tampa Bay, I'm going to put them the next level down. Tampa Bay, of course, gets the huge win last night. Some consistency issues here and there with Tampa Bay. To me, keeps them out of the top row, but still pretty happy overall, I think. No reason for panic in Tampa, and they should be a playoff team. Be very surprised if they fell out. And they're the last team on the board, thus my arms being crossed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. And as always, this is not anything that's scientific or anything. It's just, and I don't pre-plan this either, so I just go through the logos. Yeah, I think that's where they belong. Let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you have not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.